My wife and I had a beautiful daughter named Emily. She was the greatest thing in my life. We had a very close relationship. We spent time together almost every single day. Even as she got older, nothing really changed. We stayed close. And honestly, I couldn't have been happier about that. But that was before everything started happening. One year, when Emily was about 18 or 19, something changed. At first, it was small, subtle, but then it got worse. She didn't act like the Emily we knew anymore. It was like she was becoming someone else. She was angry all the time. For no reason. She would yell at me, curse at me, over nothing. And then, she started locking herself in her room for hours, sometimes the whole day. Every time my wife and I tried to talk to her, it only made things worse. She would snap, scream, shut us out completely. And it didn't stop there. As time went on, it got worse, much worse. She started having panic attacks, violent fits of rage. She barely ate anything. Sometimes, it felt like she didn't even hear us when we spoke to her, like we weren't even there. It was terrifying. My wife and I were desperate. We went to doctors, specialists, anyone who could help, but no one had answers. Some said schizophrenia, others mentioned different mental disorders. One even suggested epilepsy. We tried everything, every treatment, every medication. Nothing worked. The moment she stopped taking anything, it all came back. The spasms, the screaming, the fear. I didn't know what to do anymore. One night, it got so bad, her body was convulsing so violently that I had no choice. I had to tie her down to the bed, just to keep her from hurting herself. Do you understand how that feels? To do that to your own child? We started caring for her like she was completely helpless. Diapers, feeding her by hand, cleaning her constantly. And even then, she would fight us, spit at us, scream at us. Sometimes, she would vomit everything we gave her, right back onto us. I kept thinking, how is she even still alive? She barely ate, barely drank, and all day, all night, she screamed, cursed, fought against the restraints. We were breaking. My wife and I would cry whenever we stepped away from our room. We felt completely helpless. We even started sleeping with ear protection because the screaming never stopped. And the worst part, she didn't sound like herself anymore. It was like another voice was coming out of her. Sometimes, it didn't even sound like a language I recognized. That's when the thought first came to me. What if this isn't a mental illness? Because strange things started happening. Things I couldn't explain. Sometimes, I would hear voices, but they weren't coming from Emily. Other times, objects in her room would move, fall over, break, even though she was tied down. I didn't believe in any of this before. But I was desperate. I started thinking, maybe, just maybe, something else was going on. I convinced my wife to let me call someone, a man who might understand things like this. The next day, he came, and what followed was something I will never forget. It was loud, violent, terrifying. Emily screamed, and he shouted back. For hours, every day, he came back. Again and again and again. He told me he believed she was not herself anymore, that it would take time, a lot of time. But nothing got better. If anything, she got worse. When he wasn't there, she became even more aggressive, more violent, less human. And when the sessions were happening, I could barely look at her. Her face, her body, the way she moved, it didn't feel natural. She made sounds, horrible sounds, nothing like a human being. I wanted to stop. I was ready to give up, but he begged me to continue. He was certain he could help her. Then, one day, everything went completely out of control. In the middle of one session, Emily suddenly rose into the air. Her entire body lifted off the bed, and then she started slamming down, over and over again. The room felt like it was shaking. She was screaming in something that didn't sound like any language I knew. I panicked. I screamed at him to stop. And then she broke free. She lunged at me. I didn't even have time to react. She was on top of me, trying to grab my throat, trying to choke me. I thought that was it. But somehow, he pulled her off me. We got her back onto the bed, tied her down again. I was shaking. I couldn't breathe. He told me to leave the room, so I ran. I ran downstairs to my wife. We just held each other, crying, while we could still hear everything happening upstairs. The screaming, the shouting. It went on, until suddenly, it stopped. When he came down, he told us it wasn't over. Not even close. Days turned into weeks. Nothing changed. No matter what we did, nothing helped. And then, we lost her. Emily was gone. My wife and I were destroyed. And in our pain, in our anger, we blamed him. He said he was trying to help, but we couldn't accept it. The authorities got involved, and in the end, he was arrested. They said it was homicide, but even then, he kept saying the same thing, that he was only trying to help.